Hello, I'm Daniel Villa, and in this video we're going to be reviewing Classical Drawing Atelier by Juliette Aristides. We get into the good stuff, let me just say this. The negative things about this book. Let's just all come together on those things that we don't like. Specifically the things I didn't like about this book. This book, it is called Classical Drawing Atelier, and it has this very long subtitle, which is A Contemporary Guide to Traditional Studio Practice. So that right there, for me, when I was looking at this book online, it was a little bit deceiving because it does have a contemporary guide. So you have the word guide. And what this book is, it is not a book that you can pick up and you will learn step by step a process. That is not covered in this book. It is covered very small and briefly in part 4 of the book, which is putting theory into practice. And after you go through all of these pages, you will land on chapter 10, starting there, in which she does start to talk about supplies. And she does start talking about very simple principles. For example, sphere drawing. And eventually it goes on to cast drawing and portrait drawing, but they're very, very short lessons in comparison to the rest of the book. And that's all the complaints I have about this book. Just a warning, this might be a negative thing. It wasn't a negative thing for me, but it might be a negative for some people. If you are a person thinking of going to a traditional 4-year university type art school, then certain things written on the early chapter of the book might kind of tick you off. For me, it wasn't a problem because I did not go, and I'm not planning on going to that sort of art school. However, she does make a case why those settings and that type of education is lesser in comparison to an atelier style. And she makes a very good case for it. I know some people may be ticked off just by that, but she does make a good point about it. And keep in mind, this is a book written by a classical realist artist for other people who want to be classical realist artist one day. So it explains everything very well in that sense. So I think if you're coming from a different background, you may find like you're kind of hitting a wall, or the author may come a little bit pretentious or a little bit snobby. I know that I read some reviews and those were the complaints some people had, was that, oh, the author is just a snob, or the author is just this and that. But you have to put it into context. So that you definitely want to walk in purchasing that book with that in mind. However, if you do want to get a book that will teach you in a step-by-step format from this author, I don't know if you saw that, but I also have this book that I bought from her. So this is the Beginning Drawing Atelier, and it is exactly that. It just covers the basic of most basic principles of classical drawing. And I will do another in-depth review about this book, but just know that she does have this book, and she also has another book which has lessons in classical drawing, in which she goes even more in depth than she does on this book. So let's talk about the good things about this book. So one of my favorite things about the book is honestly the way that it feels, the quality of the paper. I personally am a big guy when it comes into books, so I just really like this book. It is a hardcover, and if you look at it on Amazon, there is a paperback edition to it. This edition that I bought, I did get it from Amazon, and it cost me $21.49, plus of course shipping and handling. If you want to get a copy of your own, I will provide a link down at the bottom so you can go get it. Just to give you a heads up, it is an affiliate link, so if you purchase anything with that link, I will receive a small commission, but that's what helps me keep this channel going and keep making more content. But for now, let's get on to the actual flip through. So one of my favorite things about this book is just that it's absolutely gorgeous. It has a lot of illustrations from old world masters and also from contemporary masters. Right in the very beginning, you have this table of contents right here, and it tells you how the book is divided. So you'll start with chapter 1, historical perspective on part 1. Part 2 is the principles of drawing, which are design, line, value, and form. Then you move on to timeless subjects, which then she talks about master copy drawing, cast drawing, figure drawing, and portrait drawing. And the last part, like I said on my negative things about this book, was putting the theory into practice. It looks pretty big in here, but in reality, it's just a small amount of the pages that is dedicated to that. So as we go on, then you start with a preface in which she just talks about herself and how she got started. And then she jumps right into the introduction. You may see a lot of notes on this book. I do like to take notes on my books themselves. I know some people may cringe about that, but I personally really love taking notes directly into my books. I just feels it just works better for me. Like I said, beautiful illustrations. Does provide us a welcome to the Atelier. She gives the historical perspective of where it got started. I found that very insightful. Personally, I do like history, so for me that was a big deal. This section right here was something that I really did like, and it started right about here on page 8. She gives a breakdown of what a 4-year Atelier program at her Atelier looks like. So that was something very insightful, and just how she breaks down and how she teaches her student. I thought that was like really important information. At least for myself, I found it very insightful. So it just still goes on to more, and then she talks about, for example, here about 6 hours a day. That's how many hours she recommends her students to work. I mean, that is like an outrageous amount of time. If you have that time, go ahead and do it. But everyday people may not have that amount of time. Then part 2 is timeless principles, and she jumps right into, on chapter 2, design. So she talks about here primarily the golden ratio and how you see it pop up in art throughout history. And once again, that was also very insightful. It does get a little bit mathematical in certain parts of it, but once she really knows her stuff and goes really in depth. So here I have a little drawings that I did as I went along. This chapter right here was also very insightful for me. The art and visual music, and also this diagram and this painting by Leonardo da Vinci that she has on this side too, was also great to have. And she goes really into depth of how the golden ratio works and why we should implement it into our art. Next, she goes into line. And this is also like a very important principle that she carries on throughout the rest of the book. She does go briefly here about the block-in process that she later goes and explains. Also, different ways of measuring, comparative, side-side, and relational. And I am a little rough in my book, so you can see that crease right there. Then we go into chapter 4, which is value. And once again, the drawings and the artwork displayed is really spectacular. I just really blown away by those beautiful pictures that we have here. This one's like one of the most basic lessons really any art book is going to provide. And I feel like a lot of books do have that, and it is the classical order of light. And you'll see a lot of these. Then we go chapter 5 with form, which is the third dimension in art. So here we have the same picture that we have in the cover. And once again, just the quality of the artwork, it's just outstanding. talks about how to create the form. Part 3 is just timeless subjects, and then it just sort of goes into more of the how the Atelier style is implemented. Of course, with master copy drawing, this is where I stopped taking notes on the book and then I switched into an actual notebook. The value of copying, it goes into the importance of why you really should do that and why it's not just a mind-numbing process. Then goes into cast drawing. That is basically just making drawings of plaster casts of classical themes or statues. Then we go into figure drawing. The elements of figure drawing. One of the things that she does mention throughout the book is that nothing is really going to supplement hard, honest work, and spending a couple hours a day on your work, it's really not going to be replaced by nothing. There's no cheat sheets or no easy ways into making good art. It's just about putting the time and the effort into doing it. And she reinforces that at the beginning of the book and keeps on reinforcing that as the book goes on. Then we go into portrait drawing. The elements of portrait drawing, obstacle observation, different ways of measuring the head, which I thought it was very interesting and similar to the Loomis method. And then the last part of the book is putting all the theory that she's been talking about in this book into practice. And also one of the things that I kind of didn't like and I should have mentioned is that the pages are really glossy. So you really see this reflection, and I personally find that distracting, personally, even like on everyday life. So the Atelier disciplines, once again, she goes into talking about there's no easy way out. You just really have to practice if you want to get good, especially if you want to get to something like this. Talks about tools and materials needed. And then we go into the actual lesson part of the book. Lesson 1 would be the sphere drawing. And then it jumps right away to master copying. So that was one of the things, like I said, that I didn't like was how short these lessons were. Because it's like, it makes you think that you can go from sphere drawing to master copying right away, when I'm pretty sure you need more learning than that. I need more learning than that. How to execute a good master copy. And then we go to cast drawing. And finally over here, reductive figure drawing. Portrait drawing to top off. And that's it. We come to the end of the book. If you liked that video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I upload content every week in which I can teach you how to DIY art school from home. I have a beginner's drawing class going on, and I also just do vlogs about what it's like to be an upcoming artist. So if you want to join the road, make sure you hit that subscribe. And until then, keep on practicing.